Chapter 18 of the Pirate's Own Book. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Pirate's Own Book by Charles Elms. Chapter 18. History of the Ladrone Pirates, and their depredations on the coast of China, with an account of the enterprises and victories of Mistress Cheng, a female pirate. The Ladrones, as they were christened by the Portuguese at Macao, were originally a disaffected set of Chinese that revolted against the oppression of the Mandarins. The first scene of their depredations was the western coast, about Cochin China, where they began by attacking small trading vessels in rowboats, carrying from 30 to 40 men each. They continued this system of piracy, and thrived and increased in numbers under it, for several years. At length, the fame of their success, and the oppression and horrid poverty and want that many of the lower orders of the Chinese labored under, had an effect of augmenting their bands with astonishing rapidity. Fishermen and other destitute classes flocked by hundreds to their standard, and their audacity growing with their numbers, they not merely swept the coast, but blockaded all the rivers, and attacked and took several large government war junks, mounting from 10 to 15 guns each. These junks being added to their shoals of boats, the pirates formed a tremendous fleet, which was always along shore, so that no small vessel could safely trade on the coast. When they lacked prey on the sea, they laid the land under tribute. They were at first accustomed to go on shore and attack the maritime villages, but becoming bolder, like the buccaneers, made long inland journeys, and surprised and plundered even large towns. An energetic attempt made by the Chinese government to destroy them only increased their strength, for in their first encounter with the pirates, 28 of the imperial junks struck, and the remaining 12 saved themselves by a precipitate retreat. The captured junks, fully equipped for war, were a great acquisition to the robbers, whose numbers now increased more rapidly than ever. They were in their plenitude of power in the year 1809, when Mr. Glasspool had the misfortune to fall into their hands, at which time that gentleman supposed their force to consist of 70,000 men, navigating 800 large vessels and 1,000 small ones, including rowboats. They were divided into 6 large squadrons under different flags: the red, the yellow, the green, the blue, the black, and the white. These wasps of the oceans, as the Chinese historian called them, were further distinguished by the names of their respective commanders. By these commanders a certain Cheng Yu had been most distinguished by his valor and conduct. By degrees, Cheng obtained almost a supremacy of command over the whole united fleet, and so confident was this robber in his strength and daily augmenting means, that he aspired to the dignity of a king, and went so far as openly to declare his patriotic intention of hurling the present Tartar family from the throne of China, and of restoring the ancient Chinese dynasty. But, unfortunately for the ambitious pirate, he perished in a heavy gale, and instead of placing a sovereign on the Chinese throne, he and his lofty aspirations were buried in the Yellow Sea. And now comes the most remarkable passage in the history of these pirates. Remarkable with any class of men, but doubly so among the Chinese, who entertain more than the general Oriental opinion of the inferiority of the fair sex. On the death of Ching Yi, his legitimate wife had sufficient influence over the freebooters to induce them to recognize her authority in the place of her deceased husband's, and she appointed one Pao as her lieutenant and prime minister, and provided that she should be considered the mistress or commander-in-chief of the united squadrons. This Pao had been a poor fisher boy, picked up with his father at sea while fishing by Ching Yu, whose goodwill and favor he had fortune to captivate, and by whom, before that pirate's death, he had been made a captain. Instead of declining under the rule of a woman, the pirates became more enterprising than ever. Cheng's widow was clever as well as brave, and so was her lieutenant Pao. Between them they drew up a code of law for the better regulation of the freebooters. In this it was decreed that if any man went privately on shore, or did what they call transgressing the bars, he should have his ears slit in the presence of the whole fleet. A repetition of the same unlawful act was death. No one article, however trifling in value, was to be privately subtracted from the booty or plundered goods. Everything they took was regularly entered on the register of their stores. The following clause of Mistress Cheng's code is still more delicate: no person shall debauch at his pleasure captive women, taken in the villages and open places, and brought on board ship. He must first request the ship's purser for permission, and then go aside in the ship's hold. To use violence against any woman, or to wed her without permission, shall be punished with death. By these means an admirable discipline was maintained on board the ships, and the peasantry on shore never let the pirates want for gunpowder, provisions, or any other necessity. On a piratical expedition, either to advance or retreat without orders was a capital offence. Under these philosophical institutions, and the guidance of a woman, the robbers continued to scour the China Sea, plundering every vessel they came near. The great war mandarin, Kuo-Lang Lin, sailed from the Bocca Tigris into the sea to fight the pirates. Paou gave him a tremendous drubbing, and gained a splendid victory. In this battle, which lasted from morning to night, the mandarin Kuo-Lang Lin, a desperate fellow himself, levelled a gun at Paou, who fell on the deck as the piece went off, his disheartened crew concluding it was all over with him. But Paou was quick-eyed. He had seen the unfriendly intention of the mandarin, and thrown himself down. The great mandarin was soon after taken with 15 junks. 3 were sunk. The pirate lieutenant would have dealt mercifully with him, but the fierce old man suddenly seized him by the hair on the crown of his head, and grinned at him so that he might provoke him to slay him. But even then Paou spoke kindly to him. Upon this he committed suicide, being 70 years of age. After several victories and reverses, the Chinese historian says our men of war, escorting some merchant ships, happened to meet the pirate chief nicknamed the Jewel of the Crew, cruising at sea. The traders became exceedingly frightened, but our commander said, "This not being the flag of our widow Cheng Yi, we are a match for them, therefore we will attack and conquer them." Then ensued a battle. They attacked each other with guns and stones, and many people were killed and wounded. The fighting ceased towards evening, and began again next morning. The pirates and the men of war were very close to each other, and they boasted mutually about their strength and valor. The traders remained at some distance. They saw the pirates mixing gunpowder in their beverage. They looked instantly red about the face and the eyes, and then fought desperately. This fighting continued 3 days and nights incessantly. At last, becoming tired on both sides, they separated. To understand this inglorious bulletin, the reader must remember that many of the combatants only handled bows and arrows, and pelted stones, and that Chinese powder and guns are both exceedingly bad. The pathos of the conclusion does somewhat remind one of the Irishman's dispatch during the American War. "It was a bloody battle while it lasted, and the sergeant of marines lost his cartouche box." The Admiral Ting River was sent to sea against them. This man was surprised at anchor by the ever vigilant Paou, to whom many fishermen and other people on the coast must have acted as friendly spies. Seeing escape impossible, and that his officers stood pale and inactive by the flagstaff, the Admiral conjured them, by their fathers and mothers, their wives and children, and by the hopes and brilliant reward if they succeeded, and of vengeance if they perished, to do their duty, and the combat began. The Admiral had the good fortune at the onset of killing with one of his great guns the pirate captain, the Jewel of the Crew. But the robbers swarmed thicker and thicker around him, and when the dreaded Paou lay him by the board, without help or hope, the mandarin killed himself. An immense number of his men perished in the sea, and 25 vessels were lost. After his defeat, it was resolved by the Chinese government to cut off all their supplies of food and starve them out. All vessels that were in port were ordered to remain there, and those at sea or on the coast ordered to return with all speed. But the pirates, full of confidence, now resolved to attack the harbors themselves, and to ascend the rivers which are navigable for many miles